we should move on to talk about news a bit closer to home back in the UK. Essentially the state of play of the Labour Party. I thought we'd touch on briefly the deputy leadership contest, briefly, to make it as merciful as possible. It's not exactly set the world on fire, I think it's fair to say. But also Labour has now become engulfed in this scandal involving Lord Mandelson, the now sacked ambassador to the US, and Jeffrey Epstein. But Rakib, shall we start with the deputy leadership race? At the time that we're recording, Bridget Phillipson, the education secretary, has been the first to clear the first hurdle of getting enough MPs nominations to get through to the next round. Labour Manchester MP Lucy Powell is pretty strongly likely to be the other person to make it through. There's been a lot of discussion about how the deputy leader has to be a northern woman to fill the shoes left by northern woman Angela Rayner. What have you made of this contest so far? I think it's fair to say it has been a glittering one, but what do you think is revealed about where Labour's at?
I think it's just that there's politicians there falling over themselves to display their working class authenticity. I think that the fact that Angela Rayner was presented as some kind of authentic working class voice, and then you see how her political career was blown into smithereens because she underpaid tax on a flat in Hove in the region of 800k. I think that tells you a lot. For me, I think again it's a sort of identitarian free-for-all. The Labour deputy, the deputy leadership contest in the Labour Party. There's really not much about these politicians in terms of what kind of direction the country should head into by way of policy. Now, I think that a lot of it is ultimately, well, I'm from this kind of background. I understand how people are suffering because I'm from Northern, I'm from Manchester and all the rest of it. I just find it all very, very superficial, if truth be told. I think that the candidates who have thrown their hats in the ring are not necessarily strong candidates. I don't think it's going to really make us think that if any of them were to be appointed deputy leader, we think that the leadership of the Labour Party, it's really improved in terms of quality, put it that way. So I really don't have much more to really say on the contest, Tom, if truth be told, other than that. I think that the way it's being conducted and some of the justifications being provided by the politicians as to why they should be deputy leader of the Labour Party, I think is mediocre at best.
Absolutely. And what's been your take, Francis? Surely if they're having to just lean so much on their kind of innate characteristics, where they grew up and the fact that they happen to be a woman, they haven't got a lot to say or add to the political conversation. What have you made of it?
Well, I don't know why they're bothering, to be honest. I mean, how long does Labour actually have left in power? They've been in charge for what? Just over a year? It has been in a series of unmitigated catastrophes. Peter Mandelson has left because of his connections with Epstein. And you just go it's all... I just want to sit Keir Starmer down and go, mate, is this intentional at this point? Do you just not want the gig anymore? Because if this was a football game and he was the manager of Rakib's Luton Town, the entire crowd would be chanting the words, "You don't know what you're doing."
Absolutely. I mean, you go to a football game these days, there's often quite spirited chants of Keir Starmer as a wanker as well, so he's made it onto the...
So, yeah, exactly. If you said to the average football fan, would you prefer Keir Starmer in charge of your country or your football team? They'd go, I'd actually rather somebody in charge of my football team who knows what they're doing. It's really that shambolic at this stage.
I couldn't agree more. And Rakib, what have you made of Lucy Powell? Has been an interesting candidate. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I think she's kind of interesting because she reflects a general tendency within the Labour Party, which is to be particularly tin-eared and dismissive about some of the issues that have really roiled actually large parts of the north of England. I'm talking specifically about grooming gangs and Islamism. So she, of course, told off Tim Montgomery on Radio 4 a few months ago for raising the issue of the rape gangs. The dog whistle comment, absolutely.
Exactly.
And there was another case which people have kind of forgotten about where after the Manchester Arena attack in 2017, which is in her constituency, she went on the BBC Daily Politics. Andrew Neil asked her about Islamist radicalisation, and she essentially told him off because she didn't want to ascribe anything to the religion of Islam, didn't even seem to be listening to the question. But do you think that's another kind of, her candidacy is another reminder that Labour is still pretty tin-eared to these issues?
Oh no, no, absolutely. I think she would be especially disastrous. I don't think any of them would be particularly brilliant, or excel in the role, or whether the role entails. But she would be particularly bad, and I think that should be an absolute gift to the likes of Reform UK, because I think those comments that she made about um, the sort of dismissing concerns over the grooming gangs and the cultural and societal drivers behind grooming gang activity. I think there'd be a very serious problem there. I just think her track record on these admittedly sensitive issues is very poor. But she's not alone in that when it comes to the Labour Party, if truth be told. And I think that the fact that we had the Prime Minister, let's not forget, he was suggesting that people, just because they supported the idea of having a national statutory inquiry into the grooming gangs, that they were jumping on some kind of far-right bandwagon. He very reluctantly committed to one after Dame Louisa Casey's recommendation in that sort of snap national audit she did, looking into the societal and cultural drivers of grooming gang activity. So I think Labour still very much suffers from there's a real cultural problem within the Labour Party when it comes to approaching these kinds of issues. And I think that the deputy leadership contest, I think, has just been of a decidedly poor quality. But I think Francis makes a good point. I'm not sure how much life is left in this Labour government. I think they do very, very well to get to the 2029 UK general election. I just can't see it, and I think that we're just looking towards next year. I think Labour are going to really suffer in the local elections, but especially the elections to the Senedd in Wales. I think that Reform is going to have a field day in those Labour working class heartlands in Wales. And I think just looking more broadly, there's a sort of triple threat in a way. There's that threat of reform in Labour's traditional working class heartlands. I think in more Muslim concentrated areas, there's a very serious problem there for Labour, especially with this so-called Your Party led by Jeremy Corbyn. And I think that in the more sort of university towns, sort of more middle class progressive areas, the Greens are a problem for the Labour Party. So you never know. It might be the case that Sir Keir Starmer's days as Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, they may well be numbered.
And Francis, just finally, I suppose an attempt to cheer us up a little bit, should we beat up on Lord Mandelson a little bit more? I mean, when he was appointed US ambassador, it was going to present it as such a coup, he's such an operator. But the reason he's such an operator is he hasn't got so much skeletons in his closet. It's like a whole graveyard, basically. The fact that he was now known to not only be a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein, he went to that island. There's a photo of him in a bathrobe on the island. There's this photo book which is put together by Ghislaine Maxwell, in which he's signed it, talking about how much he loves Jeffrey Epstein. There's now this paper trail of Jeffrey Epstein basically brokering a deal whilst Mandelson was still in government to sell off British state assets to JP Morgan. I mean, how did Starmer step on this landmine of putting Mandelson in such a sensitive position?
How many times has he been fired?
Oh, that's a very good question.
Literally, he has been fired so many times and he always makes a comeback. Every time that Labour gets in power, they just wheel him out. I want to know what he does. He must be brilliant. Or he's just got dirt on all of them. That's the only thing I can think of. That is really the only thing I can think of. I mean, what a plot twist. Peter Mandelson associated with Jeffrey Epstein. Just when you think he can't sink any lower, he manages to somehow descend, not even to the next level, but to hell itself. So I kind of have a grudging admiration for him, actually.
And like all great plot twists, it makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive to get sacked in so many different decades as well. Yeah. It's hugely impressive. But I'll finish on this point.
No, go for it.
I think it's very interesting that Sir Keir Starmer, he made this brand of being very sensible politics. Apparently, the security services warned Number 10 over appointing Lord Mandelson in this ambassadorial role. And it seems like Number 10 largely ignored these concerns expressed by the security services. So I think that Sir Keir Starmer, I know he had this brand of being Mr. Forensic, but his judgment gets questioned time and again.